Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Awesome. And we are live with the Coffee with Karen. So this is where I get to interview all these wonderful either coaches, consultants, therapists or healers so that they can share a little bit about what they do, who they help, what problems they solve. And we really do have a nice range throughout the last few years, from the conventional all the way to the woo-woo and all. Although I would say it's not a sprinkling anymore. It's no longer a sprinkling. We're into tablespoons. Your host, my name's Karen Roberts. We are the new owners of Midwave Radio Station. We also have the podcast network, Raising Vibrations. Again, we provide a platform for other coaches and consultants to actually get their message heard. Right. So today's guest, Joe, if you'd like to share with the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do, first of all.
So I'm Jo Howarth, and by trade, I'm an advanced hypnotherapist and a mindfulness practitioner. And I run a company called the Happiness Club, which is an app-based support service for mental health and emotional well-being. Wow. So in terms of what you've just said about the tablespoons, I kind of see myself as I have like one foot in each world. So I have a foot very firmly in the conventional, psychological, theoretical therapy world, and one foot very, very firmly planted in the woo-woo.
Love that. So it's physical because what you do then, they still have to do things. There is a physical, so it is the mental, the physical and the spiritual perspective.
Absolutely.
So share a little bit of your story. How did you come to be owning the Happiness Club?
Well, I became a therapist because therapy changed my life completely. And I'm sure that's why the vast majority of people that do this kind of work do it, because they've come across something that has helped them enormously. For me, I came across hypnotherapy in my mid-20s, like a couple of weeks ago, Karen. And I was a complete skeptic. I was a total cynic. I thought it was all a load of utter bunkum. I thought if you couldn't pull your socks up and get on with whatever it was you needed, bury what was going on and get on with what you need to get on with and ignore it all, then you weren't worth the paper you were written on, basically. And
my nickname was "Deal with it." Deal with it. And that was my sort of outlook on thing. Yeah, come on, get on with it.
And that's it. And I thought anyone that went for therapy must be completely bonkers. And, what on earth would you do that? And, when you hear all the stories about Americans, every American going to see a therapist, I thought that was a load of rubbish. Mm-hmm. And oh my word. And then when I was 25, my biological dad passed away very suddenly from a heart attack. He was literally there one day, gone the next, and it turned my entire world upside down, as something like that does. And I didn't know what to do or how to do it or where to go or how to get there or anything. I was completely lost. And I had a very good friend who was having counselling and hypnotherapy at the time, who told me that I needed to go and see her therapist, and I was so completely lost. I just went, okay, I will then, and still thinking it was a load of rubbish. And it changed my life completely. It was an utter revelation.
Grief.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredibly, and weirdly, that was my, okay, I get this now. Right. Okay. I never understood, I've always been, I'm very happy, blah, blah. I could just never understood it. And I just like, oh, come on, sort it out. Very harsh, not very compassionate. Come on, deal with it. Just get on with it. And yes, grief, I suppose, it's the strongest. And all I could say was I felt like my soul was drowning.
Yeah.
And I could not dig myself out of that hole for a very long time. And yes, it taught me a lesson to be a little bit more, give a little bit more empathy.
And
To
that's
up
it.
to that point, I totally like, what? Men, oh, it's an excuse. Da, 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 da. And then there you go, take that and deal with that one.
And it is, because it's so instant, isn't it? It's like I mean, especially, you know, in my dad's case, he literally was there one day and gone the next. It was utterly unexpected, completely sudden. And it is like the biggest, I describe it as the biggest slap round the face the universe has ever given me, right? It literally does. And it's like a punch to the stomach and all those cliches. And yeah, it sent me to therapy. And then I was in therapy for a good number of years. And actually, I don't think we even talked about my dad for the first couple of years because there was so much other stuff that came up during the process. So yeah, so therapy really helped me to change the way I think and change the way I see the world and change the way I saw myself. And so then when I started having children, I have 2 of them, and I was in a corporate career and I started having kids, and I was faced with that choice of going back to my corporate career or staying with my children. And I chose my children. And because that's I had wanted a family forever. That was my biggest driver. So no judgment on people that choose the work option. For me,
well, some don't have a choice, right? Some do not have. There is no choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I chose to stay at home, and then my brain started to go, oh my word, there needs to be something more, because I love my kids and they're very fun to play with, but oh my Lord, I'm used to using my brain rather more than this. So I came to needing to retrain in something. And so for me, it was an absolute no-brainer that I became a therapist, because it had just changed my life so much. And I wanted to be able to help other people change their lives in a similar kind of way. And then I started working with people one-to-one, which was ace. And I would get clients saying to me, so if I could just put you in my pocket and take you home with me, you're there whenever I need you. And then I was getting people inquiring about working with me who then couldn't afford private therapy. And I wasn't charging a packet back then. And then I was getting inquiries, because I was networking all over the country. I was getting inquiries from people who lived 200 or 300 miles away. And I couldn't work out, I didn't work online back then. This is like 7 or 8 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I'm not technical, and I couldn't work out how to do what I do online back then. I do it all the time now.
Well, it was a lot more difficult back then, right?
Yes,
we didn't have the tools and amazing things. You know, Skype was all glitchy.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, you really only had, you know, until Zoom came.
That's it, right? So I had these 3 different groups of people, all saying slightly different. You know, I had people who wanted therapy and couldn't afford it, people who wanted it and were too far away, people who were having it but wanted more than just the one-to-one session every week. And I couldn't work out how to answer all of those needs, but I knew there must be a way. And then it all exploded in my brain one fevered night. And I was like, oh, it's a club, it's a club, it's a club, it's a club. And we can start as a Facebook group, which is what we did. And I can give them something every day. I can give them a little tool or a tip or a technique or something to think about every single day. So the clients who are working with me feel like I'm holding their hand every day. The people who can't afford therapy are getting something every day. The people who are miles away are getting something every day. And it just seemed to answer all of the requirements. And so the Happiness Club was born. We started as a Facebook group. We now have our own app, which I have no idea how to work. But I don't need to, so it's okay.
You don't need to, they need to. Love that. I mean, this is it. I feel that we have been conditioned somehow that when we, obviously, I suppose, first of all, we've got to be aware that we've got a problem, step one. But we've been so conditioned because of the way everything has been done before, that we're going to go to this magical person in a white coat who's going to give us this magic pill that's going to stop everything and change everything. And that seems to be quite often still, unconsciously, I'm sure people don't, but unconsciously at least, that's that's how you solve these problems. And even, obviously I'm not a hypnotherapist, I don't have any background in that, but the way I look at hypnotherapy is like going in the back door. It's like it's a shortcut to healing. It's like, okay, we could do these things and think of it, and it'll take a long time, but actually if you go in the back door, then there's a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly.
However, even that, there's still it's nothing's going to change from one time. I mean, it's phenomenal that people still think like that whatever they've been doing habitually every single day for X amount of years has got them to this place. So the solution is going to be in one session.
That's it. And honestly, the number of clients, less so these days, because I think the message is getting out there now, but definitely when I first started, the number of clients that would say to me, so can we sort it in one session or 2 sessions, or how many sessions will I need? And I mean, the answer to that is, how long is a piece of string, right? Because we have no idea what's going to come up in that process. I follow a process with my clients, and until we start the process, we have absolutely no idea what's going to come up, which is why I love doing it so much, because it fascinates me to see what comes up with each different person. But very much people definitely expect a quick fix, a magic wand, and I've had clients who are absolutely like flabbergasted that they have to do anything. They fully expect to just come and sit in my hypno chair and for me to wave this wand and go, ting, here you are, you're healed. Ta-da!
And that's the thing, isn't it? It feels like people can be in this position and they want that thing, but they don't want to have to there seems to be more resistance in the change rather than anything. They're resistant to, they want to keep doing. And then, again, this is why I suppose from a health point of view, I suppose my background is more health, more physical health or illness or whatever, which is going to be linked to mine's, something that could be past traumas as well. But in general, like, okay, weight loss, they want to lose the weight, but they don't want to have to change what they eat, and they don't want to have to exercise, because that means change in their day-to-day life. And it seems to be the resistance comes from just doing something different, because I suppose we're on autopilot in general.
Well, that's it, right? Because change is the scariest thing for a human being. It's the scariest thing in the entire world is change, because you might not like where you are right now. You might not like how you feel right now. You might not like how you're thinking right now. You might not like what you're doing right now. You might not like how your life looks right now, but actually, you know all of that.
Yeah.
So you know what it is, whereas change is the complete unknown. So even though you think, well, actually, I'd like to look like that and think like that and do like that and feel like that, actually, you don't know how any of that is, because it isn't your reality.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
It's a fascinating, I just like, it's madness, really. I think I don't know. I'm very lucky that I think I'm just because of things I've done in the past. Although some things might have not come from a positive thing, might have been triggered from something that's not so good. But I had conditioned myself to, change is like, I'll just go there and do that and do something different. I'd conditioned myself unknowingly, just because of the way my life's gone and what I was doing, for change. So that, to me, I suppose we've all got different human needs, right? So I know people, for something, variety is obviously a very big part for me. That's obviously one of the higher human needs, which for most people it wouldn't be. It would be more certainty and different things. But I find it fascinating that, yes, it's the change, it's the doing something differently. And I suppose the acceptance of that we're actually all lazy.
And so is our so hypnotherapy is very much about working with the subconscious mind, right? And the subconscious mind is lazy.
Yeah.
It has this set of beliefs that it's learnt.
Yeah.
And
it's
we'll
not
just
a
go through
thing.
life just repeating those, thanks, because that's
Yeah.
easier, right? And also, the most important part for the subconscious mind is having these beliefs, again, while they might not be ideal and they might not be exactly what we want, actually, we're still alive.
Yes.
Living
And they're
like
not
this,
really true, but yes, we're still alive. So
living
that's
like
the
this has kept us
danger.
alive. So
Yeah.
let's carry on doing that.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it's, I always say that, you know, I want, I'm hoping, I'm sure The Matrix is a documentary. No. And I want one of those things that just goes and it can download all my crap, download all my baggage, and just, I've had a new upload. Awesome. Let's go now. If only that were true. And I suppose that's what people are looking at. Is that what people are looking for when they come to you? That's what they think they're going to get. Whoop, download the rubbish, upload the new improved version, the upgraded version.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that thing is, that's possible. But it's, again, dependent on how much crap there is.
Yes. And how long it's been there.
And how long it's been. I mean, you can change. I always remember my trainer, my original hypnotherapist then ended up becoming my trainer and my mentor. And you know, he always taught me you can change in an instant like that.
So
If you're,
what is it that's different then? So you know it's possible. What is it that stops one person from having that instant shift and the other person having it?
honestly, for me, it's their state of ready, willing, and able.
Ah.
So sometimes we think we're consciously ready, but we're not really. Sometimes we think we are willing to make the change, but actually only if someone else does it for us, not actually if we do anything. So it literally is down to the degree of ready, willing, and able. I've worked with people who have been at that point of readiness and genuinely been there, and we have shifted whatever they've needed to shift in a handful of sessions. And then I've worked with people who think they're there, but when we go in, there's resistance. Because, and for me, largely 99.9% of the time, the resistance is always down to needing to protect themselves. So again, for me, it depends what that person's experienced. It depends what they've been through.
Yes.
If the unhelpful behaviors that they live with are there to keep them safe, then there's going to be probably a bigger degree of resistance to letting those go. Because how on earth will we know that we're safe if we do let them go?
And does that mean you can go through, things could get worse before they can get better, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always liken it to, it doesn't always have to get worse before it gets better, but sometimes, yeah, I liken it to, one of my daughters is a teenager, and her bedroom is just, oh yeah, precisely. Her bedroom is just that you can't walk on the floor. It's just awful, right? It's horrible. If I ever go in and try and tidy it up, if I try and tidy it up, which I do increasingly less these days, but the way that I tidy it up is to get everything piled in the middle, right? To get it all out, pile it in the middle, and then work my way through the pile bit by bit. Yeah. And for me, it's the same kind of thing with what's going on in here, right? Sometimes we have to bring the mess up to release it. We have to bring the mess up and look at it and say, no, thanks, don't want you anymore, so that we can let it go. So sometimes it can get, which again is one of the reasons why I set the Happiness Club up, because I genuinely wanted, having been through therapy, and I still go for therapy when things come up for me in my personal life. I'm a massive therapy fan now. But having been through therapy, I knew that feeling of having that session with somebody once a week, and then, you know, having this hour and a half, if you were lucky, with this amazing person who helped you so much, and then going out into the big wide world all by yourself for an entire week and having to manage somehow before you got that hour and a half again. So I knew that feeling. So I wanted my one-to-one clients to know that I was there holding their hands, that they could contact me anytime they liked, that if something came up and they needed to go, they could do it. There was a place for them to release it, to get support, to just vent if they needed to, So that's what it's all
about. I suppose, like you say, it's no good. It's like, I don't know, meditating or something, or trying these different things. It's no good just feeling calm when you're at home, lying in your bed or sitting in your chair, meditating, if you're going to get up and react instantly to the next thing that comes up against you, because it's almost like, well, you've just sort of counteracted the work that you've done, haven't you?
That's it, right? But it's a process. So the more that you do that, the more that you do meditate, the less you will start to react, right? The more you do the inner work, the less.
Again, it's like, I suppose, so I come from originally the fitness industry. It's like, somebody who's needs to lose 2 stone and they come and do their first body pump class and they expect to, that's it, be back in a bikini. It's like nothing, there's things that have to happen. There's cellular changes that need to go on the body. Nothing's going to happen overnight. There's going to be a process. Now, so we know that realistically 12 weeks is a sensible time, as long as people are consistent, not go one week and then nothing the next week. But if they're consistent with their action, 12 weeks seems to be like the magic number, if you like, for transformations of a lot of kinds. It's not the end game, but to be able to see the change, 12 weeks seems to be sort of on the physical world, I would say, and more business side of it. Do you see a similar pattern, or is there no?
There's honestly, there's no. Again, it's the how long is a piece of string question.
Yeah. Because if they were to do consistently the tools that you gave them,
if they used consistently the tools that I gave them, they would see an impact almost immediately. Yeah. They would see some kind of change. It's the degree to which that change happens and how long lasting that change is. Because of one session, we'll only be able to do this much work.
And is that because we just as we're habitual creatures, right? Is that because we just go back into this running this program until we're like consciously make an effort to change the programming, which obviously takes more energy, and the more we practice this day by day, is that where the change is happening?
So for me, I said at the beginning, I'm an advanced hypnotherapist and a mindfulness practitioner, and the two for me work really well together, because for me, mindfulness is about conscious awareness, making conscious changes, and it involves meditation, but that's not all mindfulness is. And that for me, that's where I use the conscious level techniques with my clients, like you say, that need to be practiced, that start having an impact immediately, really, but the more you use them, they have a cumulative effect. And then hypnotherapy, as you described it beautifully, is like the back door into the subconscious mind, where all those beliefs are held, where all your beliefs about yourself as a person and about the world and about how everything works, all of those beliefs are held in the subconscious mind. And unless you go in and actively change them on that level, they will repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat on autopilot for the rest of your life. It's not the only therapy that works subconsciously, and you can make those changes on a conscious basis. It will just take you a hell of a lot longer. So hypnotherapy for me is absolutely that shortcut, that back door into changing those beliefs on a subconscious level. And they happen, sometimes they do happen like fireworks and people go, oh my God, I feel completely different. Brilliant. And sometimes you just don't even really feel much different, but you find yourself like a week later, you find yourself in a situation where you would have done this and you do that instead. And you don't even realize until afterwards. And then you phone me and you go, Joe, guess what? Oh my word, I was in this. And when I normally do that, I did this instead. And you don't even properly realize at the time. That's why I love hypnotherapy so much, because the changes can be huge, but really subtle, so that you don't even
notice that you were which
Yeah.
is even better, isn't it? Because that
Yeah,
sounds like it was easier.
yeah, totally. That's it.
It's
So for me,
easier.
yeah, the two work really. For my money, you need to be working on both levels. You need to be working consciously and subconsciously. That's the way to make most effective change, in my
What
opinion.
what I have found works for me. We might be talking about the same thing, so I don't, I'm not into, I sort of study it from a personal point of view, but not from a professional point of view. But I call it I'm practicing actually my unthinking.
Right.
Shut up, Karen. Once I zip it verbally and mentally, oh my goodness, I've realised for me, where I used to think I've got to think positive, or I've got to do this, I should be doing this, I've got to be thinking this, and I've got to focus on this. Oh man, that takes a lot of energy. The moment I it's a little bit easier than that. Actually, just shut up, Karen. In here and from here, and oh, okay, that was easier than I thought. So where I'd, I've sort of studied, just personally, not professionally, law of attraction and lots of self-development for many years. Going again when my daughter was 1, I suppose, and she's so a long time, couple of decades, and I think, oh, I've been getting it all wrong because it's all about my thoughts. And even a book that I've thought I'd read, because I only read it once, about 20 years ago, whatever, The Power of Now. I thought I got that, but I realised I didn't get that, actually. I started reading it again, or got it on Audible a little while ago, and I was listening to Constantine, and I had this, ta-da, aha moment. Oh, I've been getting it all wrong. Actually, it's the stop thinking, not the thinking that does it, the unthinking. Is that the same? Is that the unconscious? What's going on there?
Yeah. So we all have that voice, don't we? We all have that voice in our heads that talks fairly constantly. Bless it. And we've all got that voice, and my experience has been that the more work I've done on myself, the more distance I put between myself, my actual self, and that voice.
Yes.
That voice is the result of all the learning, the beliefs that are stored in my subconscious mind that has been there since I was a dot. And none of the things that voice tells me are true.
Or helpful.
They're just
anyway.
not helpful. But that's the same as the beliefs that we hold in our subconscious minds. None of them are true. We've just learned, right? We've just learned them. And like you say, with the unthinking thing, I love that we've learned all this stuff, because what it means is we can unlearn it.
Yes.
We can unlearn it and learn something new, right?
Right.
And that's what hypnotherapy allows us to do, is to let go of that voice. My voice has got a lot quieter. The more work I do, the more I release the beliefs.
Like anything, I suppose we all think, right, okay, well, now I'm going to be an expert golf. No, you're not. To be golf, you've got to practice. It's the same with this. I don't know why we expect that, oh, I've just gone to see Jo. I've had one session with Jo. I've had an hour with her. That's enough. She should have healed me. I'm sorted now. That's all that I need to do.
Yeah. That's one of my least favorite things, when people talk about fixing themselves or being fixed or having someone fix them. You're not broken.
Yeah,
right?
true.
You're not broken in the first place, and you don't need fixing.
No.
That's a huge part of what I teach. But I used to think I was broken. I used to think I was a broken person. There's nothing broken. We go through life and we experience challenges. We experience difficulties. And we're supposed to, because they're there for us to learn something. They're there to give us the opportunity to release some of those beliefs that aren't helping us, or they're there to help us learn something new in some way. I genuinely believe that. I didn't used to believe that, but I genuinely now, I look back on my entire past and I am absolutely grateful for every last little piece of it, because I can totally see everything that I've learned from having experienced everything that I've experienced. And if I
Yeah.
hadn't experienced those things, I wouldn't have learned what I've learned, and I wouldn't be who I am now.
It's fascinating but it seems to me that we've all been conditioned to, like I say, learn these things. It's all thinking. And the realization that actually take it off.
Yeah.
And you'll be in a much happier and balanced state. And I find that whole thing of, yeah, all these stories, it's all up here, it's all mine. And actually it's when we take it off, we quieten the mind. Just like, so again, putting it to the physical, and I, from the physical aspect, fitness and nutrition, I was always taught you've got to eat 3 times a day and you've got to do this. And again, more recently, I went back and retrained in this and retrained in the huge health benefits of fasting. Right. And actually, it seems to be the same. That's true. Give the body a rest, and this innate intelligence in us will heal our body. Autophagy is triggered after 19 hours. And actually, we have a self-recycling system in our body that only gets triggered after 19 hours. Now, most people wouldn't go more than 3 hours without food because they're addicted to sugar. But when we switch that, actually, fasting is really healthy. And it seems to me now that the same is with our minds. When we quieten it, zip it.
Yeah. And so many people struggle with that. And, I get people all the time who say to me, oh, I can't meditate. I can't quiet my mind. And I say, well, stop trying to, right? Mm-hmm. Stop trying not to think, because your mind is a thinking machine. It's made to think. That's its job, right? So stop trying to stop it, and just allow yourself to start with, just allow yourself to notice what it's saying, to notice what those thoughts are. Because 9 times out of 10, when you notice what those thoughts are, you can go, hang on a minute.
I didn't say that.
Right? But because we go through life on autopilot, not paying attention to what's going on in here, those thoughts are running, and we're not even aware that they're running. I can remember when I started training in mindfulness, oh my goodness, that must be about 11 years ago now. And it was the most excruciating couple of months of my life, because I had never been so aware of what was going on in my head, in my body. It was painful beyond painful and horrible, right? But like you say, sometimes we have to make the mess to move through it, to come out the other side of it, right? But for me, it was a beautiful thing and a horrible thing all at the same time, because this awareness made me go, oh, wow, I don't have to think like that. I don't have to entertain those thoughts. I don't have to buy into them. I don't have to believe them. But at the same time, I was having them because I was noticing them. So it was really
interesting. But I suppose awareness of anything, that's step one, isn't it? Unless you, like you say, I don't think people really truly understand. I can't remember what the last stats I saw. I'm sure they're wrong. I'm sure it's probably 99.95% of the day that we are actually on autopilot, even with the things that even thinking of takeaway, we go to the norm. I can be I know not everyone's like that, but we can have our favorite things. It's the same things for food. I go to the same shop, or we are on autopilot. And it just seems I get it that it helped, I suppose, yeah, like you said, it just kept you alive. But we don't want to just live, we want to thrive. But it's just so fascinating to think that all this, it's all the stories it's amazing, the stories that we tell ourselves. I had the best sort of aha moments whilst driving, which is a little bit worrying. You think that you're aware when you're driving, but you're not. I realized how many conversations I was having in my head whilst driving, or acting out different scenarios that haven't even happened yet, which is just when you step back and look in, you think that's madness.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened and probably won't happen. And you've already experienced it in your mind because you're stressing over it's craziness. And having an aware moment of, oh, wow, the changes.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, for me, that's one of the biggest challenges. And it's an ongoing process for me anyway, and for the people I work with, right? No, and realizing that, oh, hang on a minute, where am I right now? Where am I right now? I mean, that's the essence of mindfulness, the teaching of mindfulness, to be in the present moment, right? Where am I right now? Whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Am I living in the past right now, going over stuff that did happen, that brought up all these emotions in that moment, but I'm reliving those emotions, I'm re-bringing them up for myself by going back over this thing that happened? Or am I living in the future where I'm imagining all these things that haven't even happened yet and what I will do or how I will feel, and creating those emotions inside myself when the thing isn't even happening now?
Crazy.
But it's part of the human condition, right? It's how we.
Yeah, but it's outside looking aliens up there going, have you seen this lot? Have you seen what they do? Are they mad? Like, when you do have that outsider look in and think, what am I doing? And I never really got it. You know, every so often people come up with this new that, you know, it's all about being in the present. It's all about something about being in the now. But again, I didn't. Just because I heard it, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And now I mean, what you've just described there is spot on. All this stuff that we all do, like you say, it's a human condition. It's not our fault. It doesn't make us bad people. We're just doing this stuff. But when you look at it all, you think, man, that's such a waste of energy, isn't it?
Partly, and I mean, obviously we're focusing very much on I don't really use the words positive and negative very often, but I can't think of a different one. We're focusing on the negative stuff here, right? But not all of those stories are negative. Not all the stuff is bad. Some of it's very positive and some of it's very brilliant. The thing with the human brain is that we are wired to see and hold on to the negative rather than the positive, because you know, that comes from being cavemen, where we had to be aware of potential danger, because otherwise, you know, a woolly mammoth might eat us.
We're not gonna live. Again, it's just survival.
That's it. But we're not in that place anymore, but we still work the same way at our absolute base. So not all, I wrote in the Happiness Club, we do these things called daily strategies. So we give the club members something every day and I wrote this one recently, which actually was inspired by one of my hypnotherapy graduates on her TikTok account. And she was asking if anyone had ever heard of the term pronoia. I was like, oh, no, I haven't. And she said, everyone's heard of paranoia, haven't they? When you believe that everything's conspiring against you to do you harm, right? Pronoia is the opposite of that, where you believe that the world is conspiring for your highest good.
For you.
I was like, oh my word, because actually, if we're going into the woo, that's what's happening.
It is.
It really is, but none of us believe it.
And that's it. Our belief and our expectation will create the fact. I mean, it is. It's just fascinating to me that, you know, and I mean, I get it. These old, you know, original, depending on who you speak to, how many years humans have been on this planet. So this survival instinct, this protective mechanism, I get it that it served us, but man, it's been a long time since we've been running away from saber-toothed tigers. Like, can we just have an upgrade on that system? We really don't need it.
But again, I think that's part of what's happening now. I think that's what we're experiencing on a woo-woo level, in the universal level. I think that's what's happening now. I think we are upgrading. Yes. We are going through an up level on a mass consciousness level, hugely.
I hope so, because yes, I think more people, and have you noticed that there's been a real difference in the last, we won't mention it, but the last madness of the last 3 years. I think that in a way, I know we're not going to look at it now, but in years to come, we may look at that actually maybe triggered, even though it seemed negative at the time, actually a positive outcome in the end, because I think a lot of people have come to this. They are looking for other ways. They are looking for way, because we're all going a bit difficult.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of people reassessed what they were doing and how they were doing it, and took that opportunity to do that reassessment. I absolutely did, and I was already on this path, but it absolutely opened me up to looking at how I was living my life and what I was doing and why I was doing it, and to reassess all of that. And I think a lot of people also who believed in this kind of stuff, who adhere to the woo-woo side of life, I think a lot of people who had maybe kept quiet before are now like, do you know what? No, I'm going to speak what I need to speak now. I'm going to say what I believe, right? So, which is great. And for me, there's conflict there, obviously, between people who believe different things.
Yeah.
But for me, that's part of how we grow, is to have those conversations, to do
have the conversation, and that is it. I do think, and I do love the idea that I do seem to, the coaches that I seem to be talking to, they're no longer just doing this. They are incorporating now other modalities. And I always used to think this, again, I come from fitness, or I was a sports therapist for 27 years, and I used to think, oh man, I wish I was an osteopath or a chiropractor or didactic, because I know, looking at this person, I know I can help in a certain way, but oh man, if I could do that, and then you could have this, and then you could have that, I know that this is going to help you. It's not just the one thing. All this, my way is the right way, and your way is wrong way. That's what's got us in this mess in the first place. But all these modalities coming together, I love it. Like you say, you're dealing with conscious and the subconscious, rather than just a hypnotherapist that's just saying this is the way. You're recognizing that, for have that holistic, because we all have maybe habits that we're not going to keep up, or that we need a little bit more help doing. I love the fact that you're combining the two, because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, and I use the modalities that I teach on myself, obviously, but I also go out and try other modalities. There's so many out there, and there's, in the last couple of years, I think there's been a huge growth in I'm hesitating to say the word new stuff, because a lot of it is rooted in ancient stuff.
Yes, absolutely. We're coming back to, and I love it. I am. I'm the same, which is why I think I've loved, this whole show came up out of the lockdown, and I think really for my own sanity. And I have loved speaking to people like yourself, because I get all excited, think, what is it you do, and how do you help? And which is why we have a directory, we have the platform, we have the radio show, people adding their shows on there, because we want it to be the umbrella company for people to come and go, oh, well, I need this I come in with thinking I need an executive coach for my career. And actually, what's over here? They've got this, and they've got that. Love it, because it's about finding the right person for you, the right modality for you. And I think it's quite
those will change as well over time, right? Yeah. Those will change. It won't always be that this modality is the one that, this might be what you need right now. I get people inquiring about working with me one-to-one, and when we chat, they say, do you know what, I'm not quite there. I need something gentler first. And so,
absolutely, the right person at the right, I know that I wouldn't have had a certain coach or a certain therapist 20 years ago. I wouldn't have even heard it. I wouldn't have even it just wouldn't have been in my whole being. Whereas now I'm like, when do you start that? I think I'll be there. I love it because it's all about everybody's wanting to improve themselves, and that acceptance that none of us have, like you say, none of us are broken. None of us, there's nothing need fixing. However, on the flip side of that, there's always something we can improve on, and all these different modalities could help in some way, right?
Absolutely. For me, it's about growth, right?
Yeah.
It's about growing. That's what I utterly believe we're all here to do. We're here to learn and develop and grow and expand ourselves and expand the universe. That's the point of us being here, right? That just my opinion. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're broken. I don't think we need to improve. Improve is not a word that I use very often.
Yeah,
Because
I suppose that's in an indication that somebody's better than that. Yes, I don't mean it in that way.
it's about expansion. It's about
Yeah.
expanding who I am, expanding my experience, expanding the experience of the people around me, if I can help them in
Yeah.
any way. And all of that expansion expands the universe.
Love that. Isn't it
That's
funny how language, and
Yeah.
it just goes to show, well, you know, I suppose with hypnotherapy, you must know different things can trigger. And it's interesting you just said that. That is so, and I've never thought of that before. But yes, it's because it is to, that would suggest that something's better than the other, and it's not about that. Love that. It's just so fascinating that these habitual words that we can use to describe certain things, again, unconsciously, may actually be quite negative. And again, until somebody goes, right, I wouldn't use that word. I would, and you think, oh yeah, you're right. I won't use that word again, because yes, I can understand why that would affect. Love it. I love what you're doing. So for obviously, I think I changed your. Is this right? The Happiness Club, all in one word.
Yeah.
Because I had it broken up before. I don't know whether you saw me just slightly.
I did very subtly. You were very good.
I was not very subtle. So for the so anybody who's just listening on the radio and can't see this video, what is your website, Jo?
The website is thehappinessclub.co.uk.
Fantastic. And so you said that you have a Facebook group as well. I presume it's the same thing, same name.
So yeah, the Facebook, there's a Facebook page, the Happiness Club, and I have a free Facebook group called Positive Support with Jo Howarth.
There we go.
Which
Positive
is
Support with Jo Howarth. So for you, do you work with anybody, or do you like to work with specific people? Do you like to work with specific problems, or are you broad? What's your
my specialisms are stress and anxiety, because that's where I come from. That's where I used to live. But I work with trauma, I work with depression, really anything mental health or emotional well-being related. They're my specialisms. I work with people one-to-one through the Happiness Club, and I have online courses. It's all on the website. So have a browse of the website, and feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions about any of it. I'm always happy to have a chat with people.
Fantastic. And do you think things are changing? Because again, it's almost like what I found is some people, it's even if they're aware, some people aren't even aware that stuff's going on, right? I mean, I suppose you can't help people who aren't aware of that, but then some, and I'm sure again things are changing probably because of what's happened in the last few years, but it's almost like some people feel that to ask for help is something that can be difficult for them, because the perception again of, you know, and I'll hold my hands up, deal with it, people. It's not really very helpful, right? Because people might have felt that I'm a failure if I ask for help, or no, you know, even to admit to themselves. But what would you say to people that if they're having those thoughts, to help them to just take that step? There's no.
I would say to them that I don't think there's a human being on the planet that doesn't feel that way at some point. That I absolutely used to see asking for help as a weakness and a failure. I see it as an immense strength now, and I still find it difficult. So as a person that does the work that I do, there is an expectation from people who don't necessarily understand that I'm sorted, that I'm all right, that I don't have to do anymore. And I get people saying to me all the time, oh, I bet you just go around smiling all the time. You're happy all the time. No, I'm not, because I'm a human being and I still experience challenges and difficulties, and I still have a baggage of shit, excuse my language, that I need to release, right? Even though I've done a lot of it.
A journey. It's just a journey, and I'm sure it'll never end.
So
well,
when we're in the place where we feel like we need help, we convince ourselves that nobody else has ever felt this way. We convince ourselves that everybody else knows how to get themselves out of it. And we convince ourselves that nobody else needs help. And none of those things are true. We all need help. We all, we can all do with support. And that's part of the reason why the Happiness Club is there, because it's a community of people who openly go, yeah, I felt like that. Yeah. And I say to my members every day, do you know what? I've had this difficulty and I felt like this about it. And this is how I sorted it out. That might help you. Wow. So I would say to you, find a community that you feel safe in, that you don't need even necessarily to speak up.
It's having that knowledge that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not the only person going through this right now. I'm not having those feelings of, because where do you think this all comes from? I mean, I know, we're in England, so the British, the stiff upper lip, and, back in the day, kids are, seen and not heard, and somehow we've been conditioned, whether that's even there's some kind of almost ancestral or generational stuff going on there, that we don't speak up. We're not speaking about how we feel. Like you say, it's a weakness or, get on with it kind of attitude. Which, sorry to anybody that I was deal with it too. I admit I was wrong.
But I think these conversations are happening now. I think a lot more people are opening up and being more open. I think social media gets slated a lot, obviously, and rightfully so in some ways. But actually, for me, social media is a beautiful tool for having those conversations, for people who have a profile to open up and say, this is me and this is how I feel. I'm like an open book. I get told off by people for talking too much, sharing too much about how I feel, right? Or what I'm thinking. But for me, it's really important, right? It's really, really important that people can see that other people are struggling with the things that they're struggling with, because in that way, my hope is that they will ask for help, that they will go to their nearest and dearest friend or nearest and dearest member of their family and say, do you know what, I'm feeling like this and I don't know what to do about it. Always talk to someone you trust. And social media for me is a huge part of that, a huge part of helping to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Well, again, I suppose it goes back to, there's everything there, and you can choose to see the negative in something, or you can choose to see the positive thing. And like you say, it does get slated. However, interestingly, I've never really I'm obviously not attracting those types, so I never really see any of the really negative stuff that I might hear about it, or I might see a post and something's happened. I think, oh, well, I've missed that, because I just don't involve it in I just obviously repel it in some way. I'm just not having it. So I do honestly see the positive in it. I just see the positive in it. I suppose it depends where you're looking, where you are, and there's going to be everything. There's going to be the good and the bad. But
and that's the beautiful part. I mean, that's true of life itself, right? There's the good and the bad. There's the contrast, and our job as human beings is to sift through the contrast and decide which bits we want.
Don't give any attention. I just switch off. Just
right.
Don't even give it any energy. I mean, it's, you know, and there is these things called block people. There is these things that you can scroll on by. You don't have to make a comment or do anything. I'll just block them, unfriend. So I might be a little bit cutthroat like that, because I don't want any negative energy in my environment. I mean, I know you know we need it's all a mix. Not that it's all perfect, trust me, but I don't want to see it, because I probably would react.
And that's your choice, right? That's totally your choice. So,
and that's not necessarily positive. But yeah, so anybody out there who is struggling, I love it. I love what you're doing, is that combo. So the conscious and the subconscious part of the mind. So when I'm talking about when I practice my unthinking, is that the conscious? Am I doing that? Is that a conscious thing, or is that more of an unconscious thing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would say it's probably on both levels, because you're making the conscious decision to shut up, Karen, right? You're making the conscious you're making the conscious decision to do that, to not pay attention to those thoughts, to not entertain them. And again, it depends how, if you're doing that in meditation, then you're absolutely doing that on the subconscious level too.
Well, I try to do both. I try to practice both, but I actually try to practice more, actually being more alert than normal, rather than in a meditative, I'll do it last thing at night. That's, I'm drifting off, so I'm going in deep. But actually, I found the best improvement. It's the things that come to me, the ideas that come to me appear to come to me better when I'm actually like extra alert, like fully in the moment, like totally alert. But so I call it, but it takes practice. It didn't happen overnight. I still react. I might not stay in a reactive thing for very long. I can be a bit all over the place.
Right? But that's beautiful, to be aware of that progress as well, right? To see that in yourself. I had a to do with someone when I was dropping my daughter to school this morning, and he pulled his car around in front of me and then decided that was my fault. And he was very very angry in my face. And so my reaction was angry back. And then as I drove off, I thought, do you know what, Joe? He was angry, but that didn't need to have been my reaction. I could have gone, okay, no worries, mate. And then he would have softened his reaction. I'm not responsible for that, but potentially he could have softened his reaction. But in that moment, my instant reaction was someone was attacking me. So I was like, yeah, right, whatever. But as I drove off, I realized I didn't need to be like that.
Which is great, because you just don't stay. And like you say, we are human. It is a natural response. I suppose, I see it as part of this journey I'm practicing. So, I mean, to get to where, not a lot does affect me, but I can be, I'll defend. So react, you're going to get the same back, which is really childish. And I accept that. I can resort to a child.
Can't we all?
Very easily.
Yeah.
If reacted to, if attacked. So I get that. And I do. I find it quite fascinating that, I don't think I've ever stayed there very long. That I can, but it just feels like it's just this continue. You just got to practice it, man. It's not gonna change overnight. I've had a lifetime of not being that way, and this realization that, wow, it doesn't have to be so hard. It's empowering, right? Anyway, so really what you're doing, you are empowering people to take ownership of their life, and it can change, like you say. Some of it can change in an instant, because we like cut throughs.
Yeah.
I don't like the long way round.
You know me now. Yeah, some of it can change in an instant, and some of it changes over time, and that's all
that's
good.
All we can do. All good. Oh well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been fascinating speaking to you. I love this subject. This is just totally my favourite subject. So yeah, thank you for your time. To the rest of the listeners, I'll be back next week with a Coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling